At a recent press conference, Mayor Daley was joined by Governor Pat Quinn and officials from the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority to announce their support for new legislation aimed to help Chicago's convention industry. Mayor Daley said the proposed legislation would establish the MPEA as a public company and give it more control over its financial future. Here are highlights from the January 11th news conference.
Chicago's convention industry is one of the backbones of our economy, not only here in our city, but most importantly as well as the state. If it isn't healthy, it costs us jobs, revenue, and other economic activity. As everyone knows, the recession alone has hit the nation's convention business very, very hard, with revenue down at least 20% in cities all across this country. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, today Chicago's convention industry is struggling to remain very competitive with other cities, including Orlando, Las Vegas, as well as Atlanta, even competition from Rosemont. To be honest, conventions were a loss that shouldn't have been. And that's why in the last few weeks, the governor has been meeting with many people, with myself, with leaders of the Pier, with local labor leaders, business leaders, and also leaders both in Springfield, to talk about how we attract and, of course, retain our conventions here in Chicago, as well as to restore Chicago's competitive edge and position us as the nation's leading convention destination, which we've had for many, many years. We've also formed a task force of convention leaders, labor leaders, show contractors, hospitality industry, representatives from the city, the governor's office, the General Assembly to address customers' concern and find solutions to all these problems. During these very difficult economic times, most of us can remember we have a responsibility to do all we can to stimulate our economic recovery. And that means coming up with creative strategies and acting now to help boost the convention and tourism industry. The economic situation has sharpened the competitive disadvantage of the Chicago convention industry. We face a clear choice: leave things the way they are and lose more conventions, or we stand up to the challenge and act now to make fundamental changes in the way we do business. And we're not trying to blame anyone. We're not trying to say someone's to blame. This is everyone's solution, and it's a problem there where we can all really, reasonable minds can come together and become part of the solution. We know the problem is there. Some important steps have already been taken, and we do more. Today, the governor and I are joining support legislation that we introduced sometime in Springfield to make major changes in the way the MPEA operates. The legislation has three components. First of all, it deals with accountability of contractors. And we know the contractors are the same contractors who go to Atlanta, go to Orlando, and go to Vegas. So they're the same contractors, and they just move from one state to another. By allowing the MPEA to audit all of that, the additional oversight will ensure that overall costs, and we will know what costs are when a show is coming here, are being held to a reasonable level, and that contractor savings are passed on to the customer. So you have customers there. Everybody realize how much it costs, this and that, at the convention. And that is very important for the show manager, contractor, for all of us to see what it is. The second part of the legislation will focus on debt restructuring. We need to ensure that the MPEA has the financial tools, especially today, its needs to respond to changing economic environment, and there's a complete change of economic environment. Just as a homeowner is able to refinance their home, MPEA needs to have flexibility to take full advantage of the financial market conditions presently. By supporting legislation to restructure debt, MPEA will be in a stronger financial position in the short term and emerge from the recession in a position to grow and compete for future businesses. The last component of legislation looks to reform labor relations and work rules by giving MPEA control of operations at Navy Pier and McCormick Place, and also looking at work rules that only add cost. And work rules are not only labor work rules, it could be even business work rules, without providing any benefit to the customer, and there are customers there. The legislation also would establish MPEA as a public employer, and with other public employers, prohibit strikes against it, because this is too vital today in regards to the economic future of our city and of our state. And this is not an anti-labor bill. And this is a bill to solve the present situation and go into the future. This is a very critical step that must be taken if we are remain to competitive in the convention field and keep and provide jobs now in the future for thousands of hardworking Chicagoans and people in the metropolitan area. By changing the way we do business at MPEA does not begin and end with labor. There must be a shared sacrifice. In short, if we're going to improve what Chicago offers the convention customer, the MPEA has to be able to put together the most efficient and skilled workforce possible, operate with a focus on customer satisfaction, and of course the value is there to the customer. In order to make that possible, the legislation we're talking about today is very, very important to the present and future of convention business here in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. I want to thank the governor, especially his staff, and the tourism and those in tourism and hospitality industry that have worked exceptionally well with us here for many, many years in tourism and conventions. They get it, they understand it, and of course this governor understands how important jobs are, not just to Chicago, but to the region and the state of Illinois. And that's why he's been deeply involved in discussing McCormick Place and the future of McCormick Place. And I just want to thank him again for his strong commitment in regards to hardworking families who are presently working now, and of course keep them working in the future, as well as be able to expand the convention business for the state of Illinois. It's my great honor to introduce the governor of the state of Illinois, Pat Quinn. Pat.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and honor to work with Mayor Daley and his staff. We believe in the cause here. Conventions, Chicago is the convention city of America. It has been, it is today, and it will be. We're absolutely committed to that. We have to have a team effort to make sure that we put our best foot forward. The Pier and McCormick Place, the convention business, it's worth 65,000 jobs right now. We want to grow that. We don't want to stand still. We have to do things for the 21st century. I think the plan that the mayor outlined is a sound plan to make sure that we remain the preeminent city in America when it comes to having a convention. We have very skilled people who know how to put on a convention. Oftentimes they're asked by other cities to go to those cities and show them how to do it. So we want to make sure that our men and women who are in the convention business, the tourism business, the hospitality business, the food and restaurant business, right here in the greatest city of America, city of Chicago, state of Illinois, we want to remain strong. And so we have to work together in Springfield and everywhere else to adjust the laws to make sure we have the kind of convention approach to the entities that want to have conventions that meet the modern needs. And as the mayor outlined, we have to refinance some of our bonds. We have to make sure that the show contractors are properly audited. We have to work with our men and women in labor to make sure that we have the work rules and the approaches that work for the conventions of the 21st century. So this is a team effort. I'm going to be down in Springfield tonight and tomorrow and this week. We're going to begin working on this. We'll get this job done. I want to tell all of those who host conventions, you're missing the boat if you don't come to Chicago, state of Illinois, land of Lincoln. There's so many things that people will enjoy right here in our state. We're the best state in the union and the greatest city in the United States of America. We don't want anyone to miss it, and by working together with Mayor Daley and all the people who are involved with MPEA, we have a good team that can get the job done for the workers and the people of Illinois. We know we're in a tough economy right now. When we have a tough time, the people of Illinois roll up their sleeves, take on every challenge, and get the job done for more work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. At this time, John Gates, the chairman of MPEA. John.
You know I'm new to this job. I want to thank Mayor Daley and Governor Quinn for coming together, as we all are now coming together, to support some very bold steps necessary to save and hopefully grow the convention and trade show business in Illinois. The recession has hit this business very hard and has put increased pressure on reducing costs from all of our customers across the country and across the world. And unfortunately, we are now faced with a very wide gap between our costs and those of our major competitors. And as a result, as you know, we have lost some very major shows that have been in Chicago for quite a long time. Therefore, we now have a very clear choice. Either continue the status quo or come together and position Chicago again to be the preeminent destination for convention and trade shows. Facing this crisis will require all the stakeholders to step up and the challenge and pull together to restore Chicago's reputation as a convention and trade show destination. The reforms we propose today are first and foremost about creating and retaining jobs. We suggest that we are requesting the ability to modernize the work rules for a few hundred people in one building so that we can save the jobs for 65,000 across Metropolitan Chicago and Illinois. The time is now. We must do what it takes to save and grow the convention industry in Chicago. MPEA has cut its costs dramatically by streamlining our internal operations and outsourcing a number of costs that we had heretofore taken care of. By the end of February, we will have cut 40% of our employees, down from 700 to 400, despite the addition of a brand new building. There will be an increase of 12 furlough days and 2 unpaid holidays by the remaining salary staff at all pay levels. This will be fully completed by the end of the first quarter 2010. MPEA has also implemented a 2-tiered pension plan in 2009. New employees hired after July 1st, 2009 are no longer part of the pension fund, but part of a traditional 401k as in private business. We have also changed the status of our in-house labor from full-time to part-time. Therefore, we'll have reduced the cost of our operations by 30% come this May. In 6 months' time, we will have reduced the cost of our operations by 30%. I'm not aware of a private company or a governmental institution that's done that much that fast. But the building and MPEA are just a small part of this problem. Most of what goes on at McCormick Place is done by private contractors and, of course, by labor. What the MPEA costs to the exhibitor represent perhaps 25 or 30% of their overall costs. Therefore, we cannot become competitive by ourselves, despite everything we've done. The first step to recovery will be this new legislation that we are putting in front of the Illinois General Assembly to put customers first and make Chicago competitive with the other convention venues across the country and across the world. This legislation will allow MPEA to audit contracts, as the mayor said, to audit contracts between audit the contracts between the shows and the managers and contractors of those shows to make sure that all the cost savings are passed through to the ultimate customer, the exhibitor. All employees who now work for private contractors in our buildings will become MPEA employees and therefore public employees under the Illinois Public Labor Relations Act. Labor disputes will be resolved, therefore, through statutory binding interest arbitration, much like other represented public employees across the state. The number of bargaining units covered by covering show labor will be reduced from 5 units to 3. As you know, in Las Vegas there is 1 unit. In Orlando there are only 2. Having 5 is very confusing and very expensive to our ultimate customers. There'll be 1 new unit which has to do with moving exhibits in and out of the building, another unit which will have to do with setting up and tearing down the exhibit, and a 3rd unit which will have to do with the electrical service to each exhibitor. MPEA will have a clean slate to negotiate all show labor agreements, including those agreements with private contractors, to provide new value, transparency, flexibility, and most importantly, rights to the exhibitor. The other key component of this bill, of course, is debt restructuring, something that we have been seeking for quite some time. Like you would attempt to refinance the mortgage on your house when interest rates drop and you have paid off a large portion of that mortgage, we would like to have the same right. But unfortunately, for us to refinance our house, we must get permission from the legislature.
and that permission heretofore has not been forthcoming, and now is causing us to dip into the general revenue fund to pay our debt service to the tune of about $35 million this year, $50 to $60 million next year, and $800 million over the next 15 years. This legislation will stop that. Will stop the taxpayers of Illinois from subsidizing our debt service and allow us to refinance our bonds at lower costs in a more efficient structure that will allow us to operate far more efficiently and put our financial house in order. Beyond all this, there is, of course, still much to be done to ensure Chicago's status as the preeminent convention destination. It will require a commitment and cooperation from all stakeholders. We are beginning now and very much appreciate the support of the governor and the mayor. Bold legislation and streamlined organization are critical to keep the convention industry providing jobs for Illinois for years to come. Thank you very much.